Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome Professor Karola Dillengurger. Professor Dillenburger is Emeritus Professor of Behaviour Analysis and Education at Queen's University, Belfast. She is charactered clinical psychologist, a board-certified behavior analyst at doctoral level, and a fellow of the Association for Behavior Analysis International. Throughout her distinguished career, she has made significant contributions to behavior analysis, education, autism research, and evidence-based interventions. She has also played an important leadership role internationally, currently serving as president of the European Association for Behavior Analysis. Professor Dillenburger, thank you very much for joining us today and for being part of the 14th SAVECC Congress. We are delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you. Let's begin by talking a little about your professional journey. You have had a remarkable career spanning clinical psychology, behavior analysis, education, and research. Looking back, what first attracted you to behavior analysis, and what convinced you that it was the right path for your professional life?
Yeah, thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you very much for inviting me to come to your conference, the 14th conference. That's some achievement, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you all in person very soon. Your question is quite interesting because it's a long time ago. I have to remember my very first conference with the Association for Behavior Analysis. I was actually thinking about it today because I met a person last Tuesday that I met at my very first conference, and she was given a talk to our summer school in the European Association, and I was reminding her that I met her in over 30 years ago at the conference. And what attracted me to behavior analysis was really the fact that it's real. It's just a real science. It's not made up. I remember studying clinical psychology in Germany, and we had to we had to learn these big long words for things that were psychological phenomena. And when we looked for an explanation for these big long words, we got bigger, longer words, right?
Mhm.
So the more deeper we dived, the longer the words got. But I wasn't really feeling that there was anything that it was just bigger words. There wasn't actually an explanation. Because obviously we were talking about mentalism, so there were internal events that were schemata and concepts and stuff like that just felt invented rather than actually facts. So when I came across behavior analysis, everything was about facts of behavior. I mean, behavior is a difficult subject to study. We all know that. It's not, you can't stop it. It just keeps going on and on and on. And you look 1 second, it looks like this, and in another second, it looks like something else. And so it's a difficult subject matter, but that was the same thing for everybody, even the people with the long words. They were trying to understand behavior, obviously, because all psychology and a lot of other areas try to understand why humans do what they do and how come they do what they do. And not only humans, but other species as well. So behavior analysis got me to a point where there seemed to be answers, because the answers lay in the environment and in the shaping process and in the things that had happened to the person in the past and in the present, and obviously within the cultural context of that person. This is a three-dimensional thing.
Mhm.
But there was one particular situation that really sealed it for me. I was working in clinical work, and I was faced with an emergency situation where a father wanted access to his children. He was estranged from his wife, and he wanted access to his children. And I was this green behind the ears kind of worker faced with this father. And all I had was these mentalistic concepts to deal with him and to help him. And the more I was using the techniques that I'd learned from that training, the more he got agitated, because it just wasn't anything. I was empathizing with him, and I was paraphrasing his emotions and all those kind of things. And he was just getting more and more agitated. And I was sort of thinking, I have nothing. I have nothing to give this man. He has every right to be agitated. He wants to see his kids. His wife doesn't want him to see her kids. We can analyze why that might be and how we can maybe arrange something. But that wasn't really what my training had given me. My training had given me all this lovely big long words. So I thought, no, this isn't for me. I need something else.
Thanks, Karola. You have witnessed several decades of development in behavior analysis. What do you think have been the most important advances in the field during your career?
During my career?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because obviously there were massive, big advances and important events prior to me joining the club, or the science, and understanding a little bit more about it. But I think during my career, the impact that our science has had on autism, on the supporting people with autism. When I first started, I mean, I remember training in clinical psychology, my training in Germany. Autism therapy was basically holding therapy. These kids didn't like social contact, so you held them until they stopped objecting, and nobody really knew. This is in the late 70s, and really nobody really knew what to do with it. And then on came the behavior analysts who knew how to help these people and how to teach them skills. People that were thought to be unteachable, all of a sudden were able to learn skills. Now, it was a difficult process, and it wasn't easy, and it took a lot of time. And not all of them learned all the skills, quickly, or maybe not even. But behavior analysts were not looking at the glass ceiling. They were not looking at where does this development stop. They were just pushing. They were. There was a fellow called Brian Lamb. He wrote a report about special education, not a behavior analyst, in the British government, and he's talked about be ambitious for people with special needs. Be ambitious for them, and he was saying parents are ambitious, but professionals are not. This is a good many years ago. And I was sort of thinking, yeah, let's be ambitious for everybody. Everybody has so much potential. Let's bring it out. Let's find a way. Now, that was some years ago. The drive was going really strong, and then of course the development came that there was it swung around, and people were also saying, you want to change us. People with autism started to speak up. Autistic people started to speak up, saying, you want to change us. You're not accepting who we are. You want to change us. You want to make us normal. You want to you think able-bodied people without autism are better. And we were sort of thinking, no, we don't. No, we don't think they're better. If you want to learn some skills, we know how to teach you skills. If you don't want to learn those skills, that's fine. We're not. I mean, there's not enough behavior analysts to force ourselves onto the autistic community. That's not what we can do, because usually it's the other way around. If somebody wants some help, they can't find a behavior analyst. That's usually the way around. But the drive was still a couple of years ago, and it still is there. This idea that behavior analysts want to change autistic people, and behavior analysts are saying, well, we don't want to change people. We want to teach them skills. In fact, just the same as all people need to learn skills. I mean, I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old grandson. They need to learn lots and lots of skills, and I'm very happy to help teach them, obviously guided by their parents, but still. And if these kids had autism and I wanted to teach them the same kind of skills, like using the toilet, like saying yes, please, and no, thank you, and not hitting each other, sharing, and being friends and making friends, and all those kinds of skills, social skills, and of course then also academic skills. But if I teach them to my grandchildren, or have done to my own children, it's fine. Nobody objects to that. But if those kids had autism, all of a sudden I'm not allowed to teach them those skills, because it means I'm not accepting their autism. And I'm sort of thinking, that's discrimination. That's pure discrimination against people with autism. If I can't teach them the skills that they need for independent life, and I'm not the one that determines what skills they are. If they have an opinion what skills they want to learn, that's fine. We can, we are not the ones. Behavior analysts are not the ones that decide what skills somebody needs to learn, but we are the ones that know how to teach them. And so I think that shift. We need to bring that shift back again for people to really understand that we're not running after people, forcing them to be different than they want to be. If they're happy the way they are, great. excellent. And I keep thinking, if I can take, if we can take a wee 2-year-old who is non-verbal, severely autistic or profoundly autistic, not toilet trained, not able to speak, not able to express themselves, the only thing they know is to engage in self-interest behavior or in meltdowns because they can't communicate adequately. And if I can help that child to become a self-advocate for autism when they're 15, my job's done. I'll be very happy with that result. And it doesn't matter if they have little quirks. And I love quirky people. Anyway, quirky is good. Different is good. People, we need difference in the world. That's absolutely fine. But we also need people who don't, we want to support people, obviously, but if somebody needs support, they should get it. But if you can teach them skills that they need less support, they can be more independent and they can just be with their friends and their family without professional support. Sure, isn't that what's wrong with that? So that shift, I think that misunderstanding that's so rife about behavior analysis in Europe, but also in America. But I think in Europe particularly, there has been a shift from that, and behavior analysts had to adjust to that. And I think behavior analysts are adjusting to that. But one point that I'm really conscious of is we shouldn't forget our science in the midst of that, right? We should not give up on our science just because we need to adjust to the social context, which is obviously what we need to do. That's all of what we do is all about adjusting to social context. That's our science. But we can't. Sometimes there's a tendency then to go off into mentalism or to get back to those big words that didn't give me very much at the beginning. So if we stick with our science and adjust to the social context that is prevalent, present circumstances, we know about those. Learning history in present circumstances, cultural context, that's what we do. So I think that's the shift that has been sort of a wave. And I think as behavior analysts, we can help with that wave and not, it's difficult to fight back the misunderstandings about our science when people say you're doing this and that and the other. And I says, who are you talking about? That's not what we do. So I think that's the biggest shift in my career since my career.
Thanks, Karola. Much of your work has been related to autism and support for autistic individuals and their family. What do you consider the most important lesson we have learned in recent years about providing effective and ethical support?
For people with autism, I think listening to people, to autistic people, and listening to parents when we're talking about young children. Obviously, we can listen to a 2-year-old, but they only understand so much. So we generally, for the most part, for all 2-year-olds, whether they're autistic or not, we're generally talking to the parents. And then there are people with severe disabilities who might have to have somebody helping them express what they want. I think one of the things, and we need to listen to them, and especially when it comes to deciding what behaviors to target for intervention. Sometimes I think there was a time when behavior analysts thought that they knew everything. They just knew how people should behave, what the target should be, how we get there. We know that. That's our science, how we get to the target. But deciding what the target behavior is, we need to listen more, not just go, there's a curriculum that we just have to adhere to. No. There are important things. I remember one time, we were working with a mother of one of the many years ago, a mother of a very severely autistic boy, and he was doing great. We were training her to help him, and he was doing great. But one day she came in, and she just felt absent. Right, and she was listening and she was talking, and I said, stop for a minute, stop. There's something the matter. Tell me what it is. Tell me what it is. And she says, whatever, Jimmy, the young fella, he's doing fine, but it's the older boy. The older boy is doing my head in. He's doing this, that, and the other. And I says, well, you have learned all your skills, all your behavioral skills for the young fella, for the young boy. Why don't you use some of them for your older boy as well? And she says, oh my God, I never thought of that. And says, basically, I was talking about skills generalization for the mother, but she hadn't actually her skills for the young child hadn't actually generalized to the older child, and she had 5 of them, 5 children, so there was lots of practice room. And she came back the following week and she says, you know what? It's all good. You know, she used some of her skills, basically learning how to use reinforcement properly, and pinpointing the behavior, setting up a contingency so that the older fellow was not doing what he should be doing and was doing what was more appropriate, or whatever was happening in her family. It doesn't matter about the detail. But to me, that was one of the things, listening and being sensitive to either the parents, if you're working with them, or with the child. If there's something else happening in their life, listen to them.
Okay. You have often emphasized the importance of supporting families, not only individuals. Why it is essential to take a family-centered perspective, and what impact can this have on long-term outcomes?
Well, I mean, the family, when we're talking about young children or humans altogether, because we've all been that 1 or 2 year old, 3-year-old, the family is everything, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about families who care deeply for their children and love their children. If the family is abusive or neglectful, then that's a completely different story. In as much as we have to work with that differently, so that we can help them either, you know, understand what's going on, or even safeguard the child. That sometimes is sadly also necessary. But from a behavior analytic point of view, obviously we're talking about generalization of skills and all those kind of things, because if a child comes into a clinic setting or a school setting and it's only the one teacher teaches them a skill, well then, you know, don't be surprised if that child doesn't have that skill at home. So you need to get generalization. The other thing is, of course, we're talking about natural environment training, and it sounds like a sort of like a technical term. It's life. Right? It's life. So if you teach parents basic understanding of behavioral principles, the learning opportunities present themselves all the time. You know, the kid wants to watch television, misbehaves, and you sort of say, well, okay, no television or whatever, right? Or the kid wants to help with the cooking. You can start learning to count. You can start weighing ingredients. Even physical development. I mean, my 2-year-old grandson has to stand on a chair to help me with the cooking, and he has to make sure that he's not too close to the heat. But he has to balance physical development. You know, he has to climb up there and balance, or even when he goes up and washes his hands. I can do it for him, but I don't. I make him do it, but I support him. I make climbing into the car seat. It's really funny. Of course, my hand is behind him and make sure he doesn't fall. But I don't actually, I don't touch him. I just be there if he falls. But he's now able to climb into his own car seat without falling. It's all those kind of things. So if you work with families, you have so 24/7. I mean, we talk about 40 hours. 24/7, you know, hours. You have that many hours if you're working with the parents, and then you work with the grandparents and both parents, if there are 2 parents, grandparents, siblings. Work with siblings. You know, I think also work with peers in school. Teach them. That's a really funny thing, and I don't know if it's still happening, but you know, medical diagnosis, you can't disclose them in schools and so forth because it's not your thing to do. But if your child has autism in a school setting and the peers are not taught that to be patient or to be supportive or to seek skills, maybe bring him into a game. Peers can be taught to do that. Peers can be taught empathy and support. But if they're not, they might end up bullying. So you've got, you're basically not just talking about family context, you're talking about just contextually, any context at all. If you can train the people around a person that needs support, you have it all. You get the hours in without actually talking about the hours, and you get the generalization in because different people do the same thing. They're asking for the same skills and teaching the same skills. You obviously have to teach parents about consistency and stuff like that. You know, parents might not always agree with the target behavior, that the mum wants to get the kid to do something, the dad wants something else, or both mums or whatever. You know, I'm not being sexist here, but you know, the parents might have different, or both dads, of course. The parents might have different ideas. So you need to talk about consistency with the parents and sort of say, well, can you agree on a target behavior, and then let's both work. Let's everybody work towards that.
Yeah, thanks, Karola. As president of the European Association for Behavior Analysis, how would you describe the current state of behavior analysis in Europe? What opportunities and challenges do you see for the future?
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting because I think we're at a junction for behavior analysis at the moment, or we have been at a junction for quite some time. Behavior analysis in Europe is definitely growing. One thing that I'm very, very supportive of and have been doing quite a lot of work around is getting professional recognition of behavior analysts in the different countries. And really that has to come from the country, because each country has different systems of getting a profession recognized. Like if you think of how did speech and language therapists get their recognition, governmental recognition, how did occupational therapists do that, how did clinical psychologists do that? It's time behavior analysts do that as well. And in some countries, in a growing number of countries, well, a small number of countries have already achieved a certain level of this. A growing number of countries is working on it. It's a big, long process. It takes a long time. But if you don't start, you'll never get there. In the UK, we have been very, people have worked very, very hard, and we now have an approved register for behavior analysts that is within the government setup. There's still another step we can go further, but it's a very, very good first step. In the Czech Republic, we have a law. There's a law to that comes under allied health professions. Although that law is very focused on autism interventions, but it names behavior analysts by different categories, by the master's level, the RBT level, and the assistant level. So this is actually written in the law, which is probably one of the most advanced systems in Europe at the moment. That's really important, because if behavior analysis is not recognized as a profession in a country, then anybody can call themselves a behavior analyst, and we don't have any control over customer protection, or consumer protection. The people that we work with, they're not protected if anybody can walk along and sort of say, well, I'm a behavior analyst, I do this, that, and the other. We need a system in each of the countries. Each country needs a system. And the problem is that we've all been relying on the Behavior Analyst Certification Board to give us a BACB or BCBA. We sit the exam, blah, blah, which was really, really helpful in the early days, and up until they actually figured out that they can't. They don't have jurisdiction over Spain or Northern Ireland or any other country. The Americans have only jurisdiction over Americans. And that'll be the same for any American organization that comes along and said, we can certify you. They can't. They can certify us, but it doesn't actually mean anything in your country, because your government in your country, in your jurisdiction, with your laws, has to approve the profession. It can only be done by the people that make your laws and that adhere to your laws and so forth. So in Spain, it can only be done by the Spanish. Now, the setting international standards is obviously a really useful thing to help with that. And the European Association, that's what we have started to do. We have started to verify programs that meet certain standards. We're working very closely together with the Association for Behavior Analysis. We've just signed a memorandum of understanding with them, so that that we're working on collaborating and communicating what's happening between the two organizations. So I think that's a really positive step, to have a place where we have now agreed we will talk about conferences, we will talk about training, we will communicate with each other. We were kind of doing it anyway, but we've now got a formal agreement to do that with a memorandum of understanding, and I think that's a really positive step for Europe. We have European standards that are on our website of training. Now, we are not saying we will not certify professionals, because we can't do that, okay? Because what I have explained earlier, we won't be doing that. But what we will do is, or what we have started to do, is verifying programs that offer the kind of training that hopefully, if everybody adheres to those standards and matches their courses on those standards, then there will be professional mobility once professionals are recognized. And also when you have a verified program, you can take that to your government and sort of say, well, the European Association has verified our program. That'll strengthen your case when you're talking to your government. Okay. Now those standards are very closely matched to the BACB standards. They're not, we have checked with BACB. They're not breaching any copyright, and we have also matched them onto the European qualification framework. So they're European standards. Okay, they're not American standards, although of course they're standards of our science. They meet the same threshold, but and they're minimal standards. You can always do more. Like in anything, in any European law, you can always do more. You just can't do less. So I think that's the role of the European Association. It used to be we run a conference every 2 years, and that's pretty much it. We're now running summer schools. We're trying to run summer schools every year, or certainly every other year. We've done one last year. We're in the middle of our summer school at the moment. Halfway through, we've had 2 talks. We have 2 more talks on Tuesday evenings at 6 o'clock in UK time. So we're running them through the Behaviour Live platform online, so people can take part very easily. They're usually just 1 hour. So people can join our summer school. Just have a look at the website and or the Facebook group or the Instagram, or we're on the socials. We have a fantastic Spanish student representative at the moment. So he looks after our socials. So he's very colorful and hopefully attracting lots of people to it.
Nice, thanks. What advice would you give to young psychologists, educators, and behavior analysts who are just beginning their careers?
Yeah, I think go to conferences. Come to Spain.
Absolutely.
Go to conferences. Go to your local conferences, even if they're small conferences, even if they're big conferences, and then network. When you go to a conference, when you begin to go to a conference, you usually think, oh, I'm going to learn so many things. I go to all the talks and I listen to all the speakers and I look at all the posters. And that's a really important part of going to a conference. But there's another part. There's an equally or even more important part, and that's networking. Meet people. Go for a drink. Go for lunch. Go for dinner. Go for coffee. Talk to people. Don't be shy. Like older behavior analysts who've been around for a long time, they love nothing more than talking to a motivated young person who wants to become a behavior analyst or is on that journey. They love nothing more. And if they're not nice to you, just forget it. There's another one. Behavior analysts are people. Most of them are really, really nice. There's a couple of ones that maybe aren't as open to that, but because I met them when I was sort of like that young person, and I would just talk to anybody because I thought, well, that's the only way to learn. And there are no stupid questions. They don't exist. Stupid questions don't exist. The only stupid thing you can do is not ask questions. So go to conferences, meet other behavior analysts, work with them if you can get in, if you get to work with them. Obviously you have to do a course at the suitable place. There are courses in different languages, not in all the languages yet. It's growing, but I know there are good courses in Spanish. There's a course in the Czech Republic in Czech. Most courses, of course, because most material is in English, but people are writing in different languages, and I very much encourage it. I mean, English is my second language as well. I'm German, so German is my first language, and I must admit I don't speak any other ones. But that's my like the main thing is really use social contacts with other behavior analysts, seek them out, and don't be worried about as I say, there's no such thing as a stupid question, and any there's so many really, really nice behavior analysts, really senior ones that you could meet and chat to and have a coffee with and ask them all the questions in the world, and they love it. I remember being at a conference 20 years ago, and there was Jack Michael was there. You know Jack Michael, like
Yeah.
motivating operations and establishing operations. Jack Michael was there. My goodness, Jack Michael. And there was a young woman there, and she was a student, and she asked him one question, and he never shut up all night talking to her. He just explained the whole history of behavior. And I said, this needs to be taped. This is Jack Michael. Somebody needs to tape this. And it was just lovely because he was so nice. Do you know what I mean? So do that, you know, talk to them, because, well, apart from that, nobody's going to be around forever. So just go and talk to them, and other, you know, just make those contacts. I think that's the most important advice I can give to young behavior analysts that are coming along. And yeah, don't do it in isolation. Isolation is, well, there's not a lot of reinforcement in isolation, is there? You need the social reinforcers. And if you come across a person who doesn't give you a really positive vibe, go to the next one. You know, don't worry about it. It's not personal. You know, if there are some people that are, you know, like that was one of the lessons I learned my first behavior analysis conference, like over 30 years ago. Behavior analysts are also people. You know, there are, most of them are really nice, and there's a couple of ones maybe not so. So forget about them. You know, maybe some people are a little full of themselves. Don't worry about them. Just go to the real ones.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Two more questions, okay?
Sure.
If you were to identify one area of behavior analysis that deserves greater attention over the next 10 years, what would it be and why?
One area. Did you see the paper by Howard and other people, 350 areas of behavior analysis recently? Oh yeah, look it up. It's only about 2 years old or something. 350 areas of behavior analysis. And you want me to pick one?
Only one. Or two or three, whatever you want.
I can send you the link to the paper whenever we finish here. But you'll find it anyway, because you know it's the paper. There was a number of different people worked. I think there was 4 of them all together, worked together, and like there are so many areas that it's human behavior, for goodness sakes, and animal behavior, of course, as well. I think that's a really nice area to be in as well. You know, there's lovely work in zoos. There's teaching elephants to get their toes done and so forth. But there's also in the human world. We've done so well. Behavior analysis has done so well for people with autism, but there are a lot of other people who are in great need of support. Other levels of other kinds of disabilities, of course. There's some work in happening for people with Down syndrome, but of course other ones. I did my own research when I did my own PhD on bereavement and loss and trauma, and there's you know there. So that goes into the sort of adult mental health or adult or child mental health. There's a lot of work to be done in mental health. If you're into human services, but of course there's also work to be done in businesses and so forth. You know, like there's an awful lot of pretty poor management happening in businesses, and people getting very frustrated and burnt out, and behavior analysts can help there as well. So yeah, I can't tie it down to one. I think if I started all over again. I mean, I'm fascinated by this whole process of bereavement and trauma. That would be probably one that I would want to explore a little bit more. And one particular topic that I don't think is being explored. What happens to autistic people when they lose a loved one? Because you know, there's the whole social emotional thing is so much more complicated for them. What happens to them? Because of course they lose people, you know, and how do they cope with that whenever maybe they don't have the communication skills that when it's so difficult? We know what it feels like, and from a non-autistic perspective, but what is it like for people with autism, and how can we support that? Support them, because especially non-vocal people, you know, if they can't actually tell us, then maybe there's behaviors that are really quite severe, and you sort of think, why are they doing that? You know, everybody is so sore already around their family. Can they not give the family a bit of peace? But that's the only way they can express it. So I think there would be fascinating work to be done there. But that's just my you know, a specific area that I'm particularly interested, because I came to Northern Ireland from Germany, around the time when there was a lot of bereavement and trauma happening in Northern Ireland because of the troubles in the late 70s, early 80s, before the Good Friday Agreement. So there was a lot of that happening, and it just fascinated me to see how people actually deal with this. Yeah. 350 areas of behavior analysis. I think we have a bit of work to do.
Okay, Professor Dillenburger, before we finish, many of the people listening today will be attending your presentation at the 14th SAVECC Congress in Mallorca. I'm too excited.
Yeah, very looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Could you give us a preview of your keynote presentation? Like, what will you speaking about, and what key ideas or messages would you like attendees to take away from your session?
Yeah, I think we've addressed it a little bit already, because I will be talking about behavior analysis in Europe and what the European Association is doing. So I'll start off by just explaining that a little bit to your listeners, or to the people attending the conference, and then I'll be talking about in detail, much more detail, about the process of getting professional recognition and the issues that come with that. I think that's for me, that's the big topic at the moment. If we want to go to the next level of behavior analysis, where we actually are a fully fledged profession in all the countries, but here in your case, obviously in Spain, we need to find out what the processes are to get there. And I think my presentation will focus on that largely, but it'll go into much more detail than we've had the chance to do here.
Okay. Nice. Professor Dillenburger, thank you very much for sharing your insights, experience, and perspective with us today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and we look forward to welcoming you at the 14th SAVECC Congress in Mallorca. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and I can't wait to meet you all in person.
Thank you.